Hello and welcome to this conversation brought to you by White House Custom Color. I'm Jed Toffer, and today I'm speaking with Christine Tremoulet. Hello, Christine.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me today.
We're still here at WPPI in Las Vegas, 2018. It's a sunny day today, and Christine has made her way over to talk about a few different things. Let's start with you. Who are you, Christine?
I have been a professional photographer for the past 10 years, and 5 years ago started doing business coaching. I come from a background of being a digital strategist, working with Fortune 500 companies. And so photography is my first passion, and helping people be seen online is my second.
So more the corporate world back
I came from the corporate world, but I also started blogging 18 years ago.
Oh my goodness.
And so that brought all of that experience, like how to get your blog found.
18 years ago.
18 years ago.
Okay, so in 2000 you were blogging.
In 2000 I started my first blog.
How did it work back then?
So we didn't have Facebook yet, so we
Right.
blogged about whatever we wanted to say. I wrote a blog post one day about what I planned to have for lunch that day as a joke, and I came back and there were 97 comments on the post.
Is that right?
By the time I got back from lunch. So it was really like Facebook in a way has replaced that
Sure.
version of blogging.
That type, yes.
Right. So a few years ago, I had some health problems and had to take a hiatus from doing photography because I didn't have the stamina. I couldn't carry gear. And so I've actually shifted my business completely to education and coaching for photographers to help them be seen online.
So that's what you do now.
That is what I do now.
And how is that going for you?
I love it. I love it.
shift?
I mean, I started training in that 7 years ago. I started working under another coach as a mentor, and I've been coaching people one-on-one for years. And that's my natural instinct. When other photographers are researching, how am I going to do off-camera lighting?
Right.
I'm researching, how can I market online?
Yeah, I get it. Sure. Well, that leads us into your topic, the power of storytelling
Yes.
in your business.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
It initially goes back to, like I said, I was already blogging. I've been blogging for 7 years when I became a professional
when you started
photographer.
photography, yeah.
Right. When I took it pro, and I was fully booked my first year in business and made six figures because I was used to using storytelling to connect with people. It was
Sure.
very instinctive for me. And the more I've studied it and the more I've worked with people, the more I've tried to help others see. But it's really hard. It's hard to overcome that vulnerability of putting yourself out there.
Yeah.
Another big thing that comes up for people, we're taught culturally, especially those of us like you, I'm from the Midwest originally.
Right.
We're taught culturally it's not nice to brag about yourself.
That is interesting. That's very true in my psyche.
Right. And most of us are solo entrepreneurs. So as a solo entrepreneur, if we don't brag about ourselves, no one else will.
Yeah. Yep.
No one else will. So using storytelling, when you share stories with people, they naturally, like getting down to the science of it, the actual brain chemicals, your brain releases oxytocin,
Okay.
which is the love chemical.
Yeah.
And when people have that chemical release, it actually makes them feel bonded to you.
Okay.
It makes them more generous. It lowers their inhibitions. I mean, This is how people fall in love, but it's also how they fall in love with you, to where if they're comparing 3 different photographers and the work's equally good to them as a consumer and the prices are pretty much similar, they're going to pick the person that they love.
And so your goal is to spur someone on to release oxytocin.
Spur them on to release the oxytocin
in their brains.
Through story, and most of it is actually, if you're comfortable with it, or as you become more comfortable with it, sharing more personal stories. An interesting thing, like I said, I've blogged for 18 years. I've worked on the internet for 20.
Right.
And as far as working with companies, and 20 years ago, companies used to say, say, oh, if you're a small company of 2 or 3 people, you can make yourself look like a company of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000. You can make yourself look as big as you wanted.
Sure.
But thanks to social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, we flipped that equation. And we now expect huge companies to act like companies of one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. If you were flying home from WPPI and you had a problem with your flight, you might hop on Twitter and send a tweet about your flight.
Right.
And you would actually expect a response from a human by the time you landed.
Right.
We didn't expect that 20 years ago. Not at all.
Wasn't even on the map.
Not on the map. But that's how people more and more expect that human connection. They want it. They crave it. And so the more that you can let your personality shine in your business, the more you can make that connection with people so that they're interested in hiring you.
Are there risks in doing that?
The initial risk that most people run up against is, whether or not they include their family in things. What do I talk about? And that line is really going to vary for each individual.
Right.
I know people that don't talk about their children at all.
Yeah, never. Right.
Never. I know people that talk about their children all the time.
Right. The other side of the coin.
So it's making those choices. And I think the other risk could possibly be getting so wrapped up, like feeling like you have to become Instagram famous. Do I need 100,000 followers on Instagram and things like that?
Yeah.
And you don't. You really don't. Most of us only work with 100 clients a year or less. You don't need 10,000 followers.
Right. That might be a relief to some people.
Yeah, it really is. When you if you do the math backwards of how many people do I actually need to get in front of?
Right.
It's a much smaller number than you think it is.
You think, right.
It's going to be different if you're running a large studio and you have associate photographers and you do photograph 300 or 400 clients a year.
Right.
Working with volume is going to be a different story. And the ultimate hurdle, I'm boring. My life is boring. I don't ever do anything. I have nothing to share.
I'm assuming you're referring to that lie.
Right. It's a huge, huge lie that we tell ourselves.
Right.
People are interested in even the littlest details, things that you recommend, things that you love. You went for a walk today and you saw something cool.
Right.
It doesn't have to be so elaborate.
Right. Right. What do you say to the detractors that say, no, I'm not interested in what everybody has for dinner or what, do you know what I mean? Everyone's posting the creme brulee that they had last night because I wanted to do that. Well,
and if it's not for you, then don't do it and find what is for you. Where are the people that you want to work with at?
Right.
And what's the most comfortable for you? I taught here at WPPI the other day, and somebody came up after the class and they said, I don't enjoy Instagram.
Okay.
But then when we talked about it, they really enjoyed Facebook. And I said, well, then just stay on Facebook.
Don't open Instagram.
But it feels like a lot of the advice that we get is, we'll use Facebook for this and use Instagram for this.
I see. Yeah.
Don't forget to use Twitter, and you should use Pinterest too.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, you still need to run your business. Right. And you still need to book sessions. Sure. And it just becomes really overwhelming.
Right.
Like, pick one.
Right.
And focus on that one.
Well, pick the one you like.
Right.
Okay.
And so speaking of blogging, having blogged for 18 years, the other thing that I find people find a lot of relief from this, write your blog post first and then pull from that blog post to make all of your social media posts.
So you look at a blog as kind of the center of the wheel, so to speak?
It is, absolutely.
Right.
Like the center of the universe. It's where all the energy comes from.
And you're not talking about using Facebook for your blog. You're talking about having a blog.
Have a blog. Facebook, as we know, more and more, it's pay to play.
Yep, that's true.
And they're hiding your content from people.
That's also true.
Also, having it on your website means that having it on your blog means you control it. If Facebook shuts something down tomorrow, your content isn't lost. We give Facebook so much fantastic content.
It's theirs.
And it's there. Well, finally, legally, they don't own it.
But they have the ability to go away.
They do. They have the ability to go away.
Right.
And people don't nobody's seeing your post that you wrote a year ago on Facebook,
Right.
on your business page. But if
That's
you
true,
put it
yeah.
on your blog, the search engines are indexing it. People might find it a search.
So would you say
see
that
it.
blogging is actually becoming more of a big deal?
I feel like blogging is more critical
Yeah.
instead of relying on social media to hold all this content of yours.
So blogging is the center of the wheel, kind of the holder of sorts, and then you pull from that
Right.
to create various posts on the different platforms, social media platforms.
Exactly.
How does that? What does that actually look like from a practical standpoint?
So let's say you write a post about a wedding where you put 20 images in the blog post
Sure.
and captions, because looking at images without captions, if they're not your photographs or you're not the people in the photographs, having no captions makes looking through the images somewhat boring.
Okay.
So have captions. That's why newspapers have captions.
Right.
Try to keep them. But you could then post each one of those photos individually over a week or two on Instagram. You could post them individually on Facebook. You could post them as an album on Facebook. You could pull quotes of whatever it was that you said in the blog. The caption on the blog post becomes the caption on Instagram. You don't have to keep rewriting content. You don't have, make sure it fits the language of the community that you're in.
Sure.
But you don't have to keep reinventing it. We have our wheel with the spoke in the middle. You don't have to keep reinventing the wheel.
Right.
You just write the good, solid content once and then pull from it and put it in all the other places.
And what's the language of Facebook as opposed to the language of Instagram?
I feel like Facebook actually can go both ways. Sometimes it's really short captions and a picture. I've seen people take entire posts and post them as
Put it on
text.
Facebook as well,
yeah, as the text afterwards. Instagram tends to be a little bit more personal and more casual.
Okay.
So a little bit more laid back.
Okay.
Sometimes.
All right.
So you may want to switch it up. That way, if people follow you on both Instagram and Facebook, they're not seeing the exact same thing both times.
How does this strategy fit into the power of storytelling?
All of it is weaving that same story together. So if I see that post on Facebook, there's just one image and that says, go to the website to see the rest. It feels cohesive to me.
Okay.
It's allowing me, and this is where we put all that content on Facebook, and it's really hard to dig deeper.
Okay.
Versus once I get on your website, I can keep going deeper and deeper.
Yeah, that's fair to say, sure.
And we assume that people just see the blog posts the day that we hit publish. I've met with clients who quote things to me from a blog post that's 2 years old.
Yeah.
And it never would have happened. That happened because they were able to dig through my blog. And it never would have happened if those posts had just been on Facebook and nowhere else.
Well, I feel like we can get lost in the rabbit hole that is Facebook, but that's content from so many different sources. Whereas you could get lost in the rabbit hole of a person through their website and their blog that they are controlling, that Facebook or no other entity is really manipulating.
Right.
Is that what you're saying, kind of?
Yes. And they're not getting the little chimes and the pop-ups in the corner saying that their best friend just posted a photo.
Right. The distractions.
All the distractions aren't happening. They're able to get more lost in it.
So are you essentially advising people to maybe use the various social media platforms as a funnel to get people to come back to your blog too?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's my end goal. Have a goal for what your social media posts do.
Right.
And, maybe it is just awareness, or you're sharing today's cup of coffee on Instagram, or, your creme brulee that you had last night. But maybe the post is specifically with the goal of, I'm going to drive the traffic over to my blog. I'm going to move them over that way.
How much, what's the mixture of business and personal type stuff, do you think?
It's up to the individual.
Sure.
But I will say a good ratio for connecting versus selling
Right.
is about 80% give. You're connecting. You're thinking of what your future client's problems might be, and you're solving their problems. You're offering them solutions. You're just sharing with them great work or things about you. And only 20% of the time are you saying, book me now, or come back to my website.
So 4 out of every 5 posts on social media, you think, should be more personal related rather than anything salesy or business wise.
Yes. 80% give, 20% ask.
And how do you tell somebody, so where should somebody start, right? We have, or someone that has started already and wants to incorporate this more from a blogging perspective, because it seems like everybody is on Facebook and or Instagram.
Right.
But not everybody has a blog anymore. So where do you begin?
I keep 2 running lists at all time. I have a notebook, and on my phone, I keep 2 lists of whenever I think of something, that might make a good post, I write them down.
Right.
And once a month, so this coming weekend, we're about to start a new month, I'll sit down and make Post-it notes, lay them all out. What are some post ideas that I have?
Okay.
Do I have anything coming up marketing wise, like on my marketing calendar? Different times of the year, if you maybe do themed portrait sessions, or the holidays are coming up, or anything like that. Do I need to do themed posts tied to the marketing calendar? And then I just fill in the blanks, pick 1 day a week, 1 post a week that you're going to write. I like laying it all out on my kitchen table and on writing everything on Post-it notes so I can make a calendar.
You go analog.
I go analog, 100%.
Yeah, you like to see it.
I like to see it. I like it tactile. I like to be able to move it. I've done it with Post-it notes or note cards and just shuffle things around. That way, if a theme comes up where I say, the month of March, spring is about to start. I'm going to talk about spring things. And every post I do this month, you don't have to declare it to the world, but everything I do this month is going to be related to that.
So from a story standpoint, that's kind of what your arc looks like for that thing in particular.
Yes. And then I will plan the social media post around that. I ultimately... I have a huge wall calendar that I stick all those sticky notes on. Yeah. So I know every day. And the good thing about doing this, I fought this for years because I'm very much I'm feeling passionate about writing something right now person. And so I swore for a long time, like, I can't just write because I have to.
Right.
I eventually have mostly overcome that. But the nice thing is about doing this, about making that plan, is then when it's Tuesday morning and you're tired and you can't remember what you're going to post on Instagram, you can go look at the plan. Right. Oh, what was I going to talk about on social media today?
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Don't rely on just memory, or like when you have a thought, think, oh, I'll remember this, or I'll get this, in a day from now, or even a week from now.
What I feel like. Oh, I'll feel like posting something on Tuesday.
Right. Stick to the plan. So make a plan and stick to it, and have a structure there.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
Absolutely. Because many of us feel like if we put it out there, clients will come. Right. They'll just magically show up. Right. And it's not reality. We have to market. We have to make a plan. Yeah. And get in front of people.
Stay and be proactive.
Be proactive.
Sure. I like
and
that.
It's really hard though. Then when we hit the busy season. So if you plan things out a month or a quarter in advance, then when you hit the busy season, you're
not spending time planning anymore.
Well, or you know what the plan is.
Right, it's there.
It's there.
You're not building it anymore because it's built.
No, and you could even write. This is a shocking news to me. I could write blog posts in advance. So
before you publish them.
So if you know that it's going to be a busy month, 1 month, you could write the blog post the month before.
Right. Even if at the time of publishing you make a tweak or two here or there, but the lion's share is done.
Yes, you could get the lion's share done. Or if you have a theme post that you post once a month, your favorite things, you could do it in advance so that you're not under pressure And then, because the first thing that people cut is their blog.
Yeah.
Because Facebook gives you such instant gratification.
Yep.
You get the likes, you're going to feel good.
Right.
So they cut the blog. It's the first thing that goes. And people tell me, they're like, on Facebook, they write this really long post to me about how they don't have time to blog. And I'm like,
that was your blog.
That was your blog post.
Blog post.
And ultimately, that's one of my tips for people is if you're struggling with blogging, if you have those mental blocks, the gremlins that show up in your mind telling you that's really hard, go write the post on Facebook in the box.
If you need to, and then copy it over.
Copy it over.
Right.
Just write it first.
Right.
On Facebook, copy it over.
Interesting.
Be done with it. And for so many people, that overcomes that hurdle of how scary it is to write a blog post.
Good psychological trick.
Yes. I love playing mind games with myself.
With yourself. So here's like my last question about blogging. I understand that it's more important, and I get why. But how, in the vein of what we were just talking about, how long does a post need to be? I mean, it's not. There's not like a requirement.
No, there isn't a requirement. Google likes it when they're about 500 words at least.
Good to know.
Google really likes it when they're 1,000 words.
Is that right?
Yeah, Google likes longer posts.
Longer blog posts.
Yes,
right.
But it likes the short ones too. Google likes content. People get really wrapped up in SEO, and I will never deny SEO is very important. Mm-hmm. But what's even more important is having content for Google to index.
Okay.
So if you're never writing posts because you're afraid of the SEO and you're afraid you don't know how to do SEO right, you're getting 0 benefits versus 30% of the benefits.
Right.
So get used to writing content first and then worry about putting SEO into place. But having longer blog posts is definitely something that Google loves. And another thing that I suggest to people, think about the things that you always talk about in client meetings. Most of us normally have like a rhythm that happens in our meetings, and there's certain stories that come up in most meetings or advice that you always give clients when they book. Take those items and make cornerstone posts on your website out of them. Long content. Posts that are 1,000 to 2,000 words, even if you can. Really big posts, once a month, once a quarter, even they'll help you. But make these long posts. They're also reference material for you. Okay. You can always point people back to them. Right. But it also it tells Google, I'm an expert on this. Mm-hmm. I am a resource. You should be sending people. Google wants to look good. Right. They want to send people good, valuable content. Right. So having that resource content, those cornerstone posts, if you can make them, even if you can just make one in the next 6 months, write those posts so that you start getting the influence of it. And then your other weekly post, your post about your sessions, can be shorter.
I totally lied about that being my last question. I do have one more. How often then? How often should you write? How often should you post? Given all of this,
my ideal is once a week, 1 post a week. Pick a day and a time that people can depend on. Wednesday at noon is when there's going to be a new post. Right. Whatever day fits into your calendar the best. Right. But like we said, you can write them in advance. So if you prefer to write at midnight on Mondays, great. Yeah. You can hold it for daytime to publish.
And if you're in a zone, write a couple.
Right. If you're in a zone, write a few.
Take advantage of it.
If you're feeling passionate about something. Right. I used to break weddings up into 2 or 3 posts, that sort of thing. A day, once a week is fantastic. Not everybody feels comfortable with that. It's okay if you back off, but it's 52 posts a year. Right. It feels overwhelming, but you probably wrote that length of content already on Instagram or Facebook this week.
Easily, yeah.
So it's not as overwhelming as it feels once you start doing it and once you get in practice.
And then that is the story, right?
Yes.
I mean, essentially what you're saying is that over time becomes the story.
Right. It's the story. part of what you're doing when you create blog posts is you are creating content that people can read, and then they can go out and talk about you.
Yeah.
You know, how many times have you read a magazine article and then you see a friend for dinner the next day and you say, I read this really cool magazine article. You should check it out.
Yep.
It's that same sort of thing. You're giving people content that they can easily point back to.
Sure.
And they can't easily, yes, they can say, go check out so-and-so on Instagram, but they can't easily point back to one very specific thing that was written 6 months ago.
Right. No, that's true. Interesting. This was kind of eye-opening. I'll be honest with you. I've kind of written off blogs.
Most people have.
Just in my mind. But all the stuff you were saying about what Facebook is doing now, and they're going more and more in that direction. And you hear people complain about it, or you see people complain about it, right?
Right. And if you watch what Facebook did 3 or 4 years ago and how they primed us for where Facebook is right now, Instagram is already starting it.
Right.
So Instagram in 2 or 3 years will not be as solid for our businesses, most likely, as it is today.
So get ahead of the game.
Get ahead of the game.
And get a blog established and start your story there.
And just think of it as your encyclopedia of information. You can always reference it back.
That you can pull from, right?
You can keep pulling from it. And when you write a blog post in January, you can still share about it. That's a big thing that we do. We write one blog post and then we share it on social media one time.
Right.
You can share that post
share it again.
For a year.
Yeah.
Like you could share that post once a month if you wanted to.
Right.
We put ourselves on this like treadmill of content creation, and you don't have to be.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that.
That's why I said, yes, 52 posts a year is fantastic. But if you only write 12 a year, but you share them all the time and you're constantly driving traffic there, it'll still help you.
Right. And really don't worry about the detractors. Is that right?
Yes.
The people are like, oh, there's your recipe for crab cakes again.
No, but most of the time, thanks to social media and the algorithms and everything else, they probably didn't see it before.
Right.
They probably didn't see that you shared a wedding, or if you shared a portrait session 6 months ago, they didn't see it, or they don't remember it.
Right.
And they'll go look at it again.
Or if they don't care, they just scroll past it anyway.
They just scroll anyways. I mean, that's how we surf the internet, is we hold our phones and, fling the screen up.
Yeah, I probably do that.
I know I do.
This was great. This was really good information. And again, I used to blog. I did, and I stopped. And then recently I've just thought there's not much of a point, but I think that your position is extremely valid, and it makes a lot of sense.
It's the land that you own.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're not leasing it.
You're not leasing it.
You own that property.
You own that property.
That's a good one.
So build on the land you own, and then go to the social media party and invite people back to your house.
I like it. I like it a lot. Well, thank you for this.
No problem.
Thank you for your time with this. Where do people find your blog?
So my blog, my website, everything is at ChristineTremoulet.com. Okay. I realize nobody can spell that off the top of their head. So it's also thelifeboss.com.
Oh, okay. Redirects there,
well.
Sure.
Redirects there as well.
The Life Boss.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's also the name of my podcast. So if they want to listen to more add to the podcast that they listen to, they can find that on iTunes and everywhere else as well.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go look into blogging again. I think I am. Have a great rest of the trip here.
Thank you so much.